Rightio, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 4 of the Riverina Rebellion. I'm Dean McCrae, the candidate for the Riverina on behalf of the Liberal Democrats of Australia for the upcoming federal election. And joining me tonight, I have the New South Wales lead Senate candidate for the Liberal Democrats. We're proud to have him on board. I'm proud to work with him, and since I've got to know him, I really quite like the guy. John Ruddick. Welcome, John, to the Riverina Rebellion, mate.
Dean, so good to see you, mate. I think you're fighting a fantastic fight down there in Riverina. You're up against Mr. McCormack, the failed former Deputy Prime Minister. And look, I reckon most people in Wagga and the surrounding areas didn't even know who he was until he became the Deputy Prime Minister. I think they would have been fairly underwhelmed. I'm surprised he's even going around again. But, you know, he wants to give it another go, probably because he's got nothing else to do. So, mate, I reckon you are going to overperform down there.
And look, he's got nothing else to do, and it also comes with a pretty tidy little paycheck. We can't negate the power of money when it comes to a lot of these guys that are in these cushy seats and these cushy gigs. Unfortunately, as Liberal Democrats, we do most of this for free. In fact, I've never made $1 out of politics, although a few people have asked me, well, how much do you get paid? I've never seen $1 out of it, but by God, I've put a few into it. Oh, you there?
I think it's appalling. I bet you're right. I bet you're right that he wants to go again because he likes the salary. Now, the truth is, it's appalling that people want to be guiding our country in the federal parliament because it's in their interest. He's clearly proven that he's really got nothing much to contribute. Now, I'm not saying a lot of these politicians are not great people. I don't think he's a bad person, Michael McCormack. I just think he's a capital D dud. And I reckon the average person in the Riverina is well aware of that now.
Yeah.
Unlike you.
Look, I have my own list of flaws, John. I was actually asked earlier today from a friend going, oh, you know, are you worried about anything from your past coming up? I said, no, my past is an open book. All my skeletons live on my closet. I've done all sorts of crazy shit. I've had a hell of a good life. I've learned good things. I've learned good lessons, had positive wins. I've had negatives. I've had the whole lot, which makes me a real person, and I don't shy away from any of it. And that's very unusual. And the ABC tried to stitch me up in an interview a couple of years ago in a similar manner. It says here that you've had successes and failures. No shit, Sherlock. Anybody that says that they haven't had a few failures is a liar. Now, I'm quite happy to accept mine, and I'd rather see most of our political class own up to a few of theirs, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, look, some of these people are so dull that they actually haven't done anything wrong. They've been a little goody two-shoes, a little nobody. And, from what I can see, Michael McCormack probably fits into that category. But, yeah, look, most normal human beings have done one or two misdemeanors in their lives. And yeah, that's a thing, you know. So, look, I reckon there's got to be. I mean, it's such a great part of New South Wales, a great part of Australia, the Riverina, such a productive part. I think Wagga's the biggest city, inland city in New South Wales, on the other side of the Great Dividing Range. It's a beautiful town, and there's got a lot of common sense people there. And, you know, they threw out the Liberal candidate there in the state by-election, I think, in 2018. So it means that they follow politics. They just blindly vote for one party or the other. You know, I reckon we're going to... Now, I'm really looking forward to the 16th of February, Dean, when we're going to have the big event down there to launch your campaign. And I think we've got Ross Cameron coming. I think we've even got the Aussie Cossack coming down, which is exciting, and a few others, which is terrific.
Don't forget MLC Tim Quilty, John. MLC Tim Quilty. Now your video is still very... Your video is very scratchy there, John. I'm getting some feedback from some of our people watching, so apologies for that. But again, real people doing real things at real time. Sometimes technology is our friend, and sometimes it's not. So, but yeah. So the 16th, we are having the Riverina Rebellion down here in Wagga. It's at the Riverina Club. We do need to start selling some tickets. I think 15 or 20 have sold, but we've got up to 200. But we can obviously fill the gaps in between there. It would be great to have a lot of supporters and people who are just motivated. They don't have to be members of the party. It's not an elitist thing. It's anybody who wants to show up, have a couple of beers with some legends. The speaker list at the moment seems to be John Ruddick is going to be a keynote speaker, along with obviously myself being as my campaign launch. Mr. Ross Cameron, formerly of Outsiders on Sky News, will be our MC for the evening. Most people know Ross. No doubt we'll get a few stories about Marcus Aurelius thrown in there. I would be disappointed if he didn't. Tim Quilty, MLC from Victoria, Liberal Democrats, one of the champions of liberty down in Victoria, who so bravely stood against Dan Andrews for the last 2 years, and him and David Limbrick were essentially the opposition in Victoria. So really proud to have him on board. And paramedic John Larter is also going to be there. John's in Canberra today at the moment. Again, fighting for our freedoms down there and doing a great job of it. So John's also joined the Liberal Democrats. So we've got 2 Johns in New South Wales kicking a few goals for us. Oh.
Look, few people have done more to end COVID extremism than John Larter. I've got to know John quite well lately. He is an absolutely fantastic human being, and his family. And you know, he's lost his job. His wife has lost her job. They've got 4 or 5 kids, I think. You know, and they are just good-hearted people. And I think he's a former member of the Liberal Party, but he's definitely joined the Liberal Democrats now. And you know, we need more people like John Larter. So yeah, we're thrilled to have him. I'm great to hear, Dean, that he's coming to the Riverina Rebellion on the 16th of Feb. Yeah,
look, John was waiting to confirm based on his court cases, but he's tentative. And as you did sort of mention and let the cat out of the bag, the Aussie Cossack, who is not a member of the Liberal Democrats, but, you know, like we do have a preference deal with the United Australia Party. And I know the Cossack is affiliated with those guys. I think he was sort of running with those guys for the Strathfield by-election. I'm not sure what went on there, but anyway, whatever went on. I kind of like the guy. I think some of his videos are great. I don't know him very well. And some people are going to love him and some people are going to hate him, and people feel the same way about me. But I'm happy to have a beer with him and you know, do our bit to put the government back in their box. The interesting part is some of the first people to buy tickets to the Riverina Rebellion, I know for a fact, are actually members of One Nation, and they just sort of support this whole freedom movement, and they can see what I'm trying to do down in the Riverina, which was unite the small parties and have us all working together to show the big parties that, guess what, it doesn't matter how big and how important you think you are, we're coming for you and we're challenging you, and you do not have free reign for tyranny over this country. I'm not just handing it over to you. Sorry, guys.
Well, look, there's 3 political parties in this country who have taken a stand against COVID extremism. That's, of course, the Liberal Democrats from the very beginning, One Nation, and the United Australia Party. Now, those 3 parties, often minor parties, bicker and don't get along well. But I think that these 3 parties are getting along very, very well. I think we're going to have a very tight preference swap. I don't think it's a bad thing that there's 3 anti-COVID extremism parties. We sort of appeal to different communities, but we can sort of funnel those votes together. And you know, look, we really hope that some Liberal Democrats will get elected to the federal parliament election. Now, you know, and we help the United Australia Party or Paul Ann Hanson's party. Well, that's not a bad. That's a pretty good outcome, because it'll be better to have anybody there in the Parliament, particularly the Senate, who is standing up against this extremism, and that is what it is. It's been going on for 2 years now, Dean. Look, yeah, we've been told that we've all had to have the booster for 3 months. You know, only about 1 in 3 Australians have had the booster because there's been no coercion. Okay, so now when maybe the coercion will come, but I mean, it's pretty authoritarian. We've had 3 months. It's not as though people don't know about the booster program. The booster program is being shoved down our throats. Just turn on the media or the radio or the newspaper. Yes, take the booster, take the booster, take the booster. Okay. Now, well, 2 out of 3 of us have decided not to take it. Let's just leave it at that. The Liberal Democrats believe in choice. There are some parties out there saying, don't take the vax. That's not the Liberal Democrats. The Liberal Democrats are a choice party. We're saying, look, take the vaccine if you want, take it if you don't want, and it's a private decision. It's a private decision, and we just keep it private.
I got asked today,
Liberal
John.
Democrats.
I got asked today, and I've got a few. I don't know if I call them fans, trolls, or frenemies, or whatever they are, and they do like to try and stitch me up on occasion because I've been in this space for a little while, and I kind of like them. I actually appreciate it because it helps me keep a bit sharp on discussing these topics and things like that. And you know, how do you feel about legalising drugs? Is it true you want to legalise all drugs? I said, well, I don't think consenting adults taking drugs is a legal matter. That's a personal choice, whether you want to or not. I don't see a difference between a consenting adult choosing to take a Pfizer jab or choosing to snort cocaine off a toilet seat. I don't personally recommend either. I'm a no drugs kind of guy. I don't like Panadol. But I also, if you're a consenting adult and you don't have a government coercing you into doing so, well, then that's fair enough. Go for it. Do whatever you like. Your consequences. But if you do decide to take drugs, or you do decide to rob somebody to pay for those drugs, that's the crime. Anything else is a medical decision and a medical problem, and that's how it should be treated. But we're not here to debate COVID, and we're not here to debate the drugs policy for tonight. The reason I've particularly reached out to you, John, for the evening is we're going to discuss point 2 of the Freedom Manifesto. Now, anybody who's new to this channel or my stuff or the Lib Dems, Freedom Manifesto is a brilliant document. It's one of the most wonderful political documents I've read in recent history, and I love it, and I'm really proud of it. I'm proud to be part of a party that's put together such a well thought out document. Recall elections are point number 2. Last week with Crystal Mitchell, I chatted about COVID alarmism, which we all know is a very, very mass topic in Australia at the moment. But recall elections, mate. Tell us about point 2 on the Freedom Manifesto, and then we'll have a quick discussion about it. We'll plug our event again because we need to sell some tickets. I want everybody to buy tickets to the Riverina Rebellion and make recall elections.
Okay, so look, we first had Western civilization first experimented with democracy in ancient Athens and around the same time in ancient Rome. Now, so we have had democracy on and off for 2,500 years. We've had a fair bit of democracy in the last sort of century or so. And we can look back across human history and we can say democracy is good for humans. Okay. Now, because the alternative is, while democracy has its many problems, but it's better than any other alternative. Okay. Now, but the thing about democracy is it needs to continually be refined, our processes about how to truly find the will of the people. Aristotle was the one that said, look, there is wisdom in the crowd. If a large number of people are asked to sort of give an opinion on things, you know, a lot of the time they will get it right. So now, what we're saying with recall elections, and it's, you know, this is not a unique thing. I mean, many states in the United States have a recall election, and many other countries have recall elections. Now, the guts of it is this: we have an election every 3 years, or federally, every 4 years for the state parliament. Now, let's say that you've elected, you live in a seat called the ABC seat, and you're 1 year into this person's 3-year term. The people want to get rid of him because he's a jerk, or he's doing things that we totally don't agree with, or for whatever reason, they want to get rid of him. Now, under the current parliamentary system, we have to wait another 2 years before we can remove that person as being our representative in the parliament. Under the recall election, we're saying that if a sufficient number of people, and I'm sort of thinking 5, 10, maybe 15% of the people in that electorate of look, I call it the ABC, that's a bad name. Let's call it the XYZ electorate.
We'll call it the Riverina.
Let's call it Riverina. Absolutely. Let's call it Riverina. Good one. Let's say 2 years ago, after Dopey, Mr. McCormack lost his job as the Deputy Prime Minister because he was a dud. Let's say 10% of the people in Riverina signed a petition. They said, we want a new federal member. We don't like this guy. He's not representing us. We want a different voice in Parliament. Well, you can do that all you want now. You can have 90% of the people sign the petition, and it means nothing. He's stuck there for 3 years. Under the recall election model, we say 10% of the people in the Riverina sign a petition and say, we want a fresh election for our local member. So we get 10% signed, and then if 10% signed, then that triggers a by-election. Now, Mr. McCormack might have won that by-election. If he did, it would strengthen him. But he might lose that by-election, and therefore we'd have a new member, and the people of the Riverina would have a member that they associate with, that they identify with, that they support. So that's now the best part about a recall election, Dean, is it keeps politicians on their toes. They know they can't step out of line too much because they know that they will get recalled, and to be recalled is very embarrassing. Now, the other thing is we're also saying let's have a recall election, not just for the or a recall option, not just for a particular member of parliament, but for the whole government. Now, that'll be a really big ask, okay, to get 10% of New South Wales to sign a petition. I know it doesn't sound like much, but believe me, it's a big ask to get 10% to say, yes, I want a fresh election. People won't do it willy-nilly. They'll only do it when it's really serious. Now, when we had like 10, 12 years ago in New South Wales, we had a pretty bad Labor government. We had Eddie Obeid, we had Christina Keneally. Now, I reckon we could have recalled those people 2 years before they lost office, and that would have been a good thing. And so that's the first part of our recall policy. And we have two other very important things. The next one is voluntary voting. Now it is Australia is an outlier. We force citizens to vote. There are some other democracies that do that, but not many. Okay, so the democracies most similar to us, New Zealand, Canada, United States, the United Kingdom, most of Europe, they do not force citizens to vote. The Liberal Democrats are all about free citizens and individual choice. Now, some people will not want to vote for whatever reason. In most cases, it will be because they are not interested in politics. They might be interested in stamp collecting. They might be interested in butterfly collecting. Whatever the hell they might be interested in, whatever the hell it is, right? Doesn't matter. But there'll also be a group of people who won't vote because they might be interested in politics. They might be so interested in politics that they say, I don't like any of these bastards. I'm not voting in this election. Okay. So we need to give people the right not to vote. Now, in countries where you're not forced to vote, it obviously varies a lot, but roughly 7 out of 10 people vote. Okay. Now, that's a good thing because that means if you're going to win, if you want to win the election, and you're a leader, you've got to go out there and get the people who are your traditional supporters. You've got to say, vote for me. I want to be the Prime Minister. Okay. And got to get the base motivated. And then a good leader can bring the base and the middle. What's happening at the moment, the reason why Australian politics is so bland and we have such ordinary leaders and such conviction-free leaders is because the Liberal Party, Labor Party, can just 100% be guaranteed that their base is going to vote, even if they don't like them. And so, therefore, what's going to happen is Scott Morrison and Albanese, what they do is they're just trying to win over that 10% in the middle who are disinterested in politics. So they just say little fairy floss things to get the undecided, the apathetic middle. So we're being governed by the apathetic. Okay. And that's not difficult to change that law. It's not part of our constitution about compulsory voting. That's just an act of parliament. Okay. So now the third one is we want to have a citizens-initiated veto. Now, this is different to citizens-initiated referendum, which I used to be a supporter of. Then John Humphreys, the founder and the president of our party, he convinced me that citizens-initiated referendum is not a good idea. Now, what happens under a citizens-initiated referendum is if you get 10% of the population to sign a petition, that then triggers a referendum on a particular law. And what that's going to do is it's going to bring in more and more laws. Okay, laws equal, laws are anti-freedom. Okay, so we want less laws, not more laws. And we do believe in parliamentary democracy. We believe in electing people who we think are wise and smart and who we want to entrust with, making laws. But under the citizens-initiated veto, what we would say is we want to give the people the right to sign a petition, and that triggers a referendum or a plebiscite on striking down that law. Now, when Julia Gillard narrowly won the 2010 federal election, she said she wasn't going to bring in a carbon tax. She did bring in a carbon tax. It was very unpopular. Well, that would have triggered, in those circumstances, that would have triggered a citizens-initiated veto. And we could have struck down that law, and that would have been a good thing. So that's the guts of it, Dean. We want to basically empower. At the end of the day, the Liberal Democrats believe in the Australian people. And we don't believe in authority. We want the people to be powerful. We want politicians to be constrained. And that's the guts of this point.
Mate, 100%. And look, the more constrained, the better. From what if the last 2 years has taught us anything, most of them should be in cages and have no real say. Actually, I did see Barnaby Joyce was refurbishing a couple of jails up near Maitland jail refurbishment. Maybe they're getting ready for when they finally get locked up and put in there. They don't want them to be too poor a quality, I suspect. Mate, look, I love the idea of recall elections, and for years I've always gone, look, if some asshole gets in for even if say you're a mad green, right, and you go in on a pro environment, net zero, we want all this, there's not going to be X, Y, Z, but then, and hybrid cars, for an example, solar panels on your roof, and then we find out that in your spare time you're driving around in a great big diesel guzzling truck, and that you're a hypocrite and you're a bullshit artist. Your base should be able to come out and say, hang on, we voted for you on the following basis. What you sold us was nonsense and lies. We want you out on the out on your ass. No different to if I was, argument's sake, I got voted into the Riverina on a platform of freedom, liberty, leave people alone, all the other things that I'm always very loud and vocal about. But then I get in there and go, right, hang on, let's lock people up. You're all wearing masks, and I expect you all to do the following. By the way, the tax rate's going up. I would expect to be recalled and thrown out on my head. I know the political class don't think like that. They sort of just look at people like sheep, and and they do, and they look at them and they go, they will do as they're told, and we will manipulate them and maneuver them. And unfortunately, that's the system we currently have. I'd love to see the system move over to recall elections. A friend of mine, Nicholas Wildstar over in California, was actually very heavily involved in the recent Gavin Newsom recall elections. He's running a bit of a serial candidate, a bit of a protest candidate, and he was involved in the Gavin Newsom attempts at a recall election. So I actually had a bit of experience chatting to him about it. And I don't think they're a great idea, because as soon as you're not meeting your base and you're not sticking to your word or your principles or what you got elected on, it just puts the power in the people's hands to say that's nonsense, you're out, or you're at least under threat. And you can't sit there and be a big fat cat on the taxpayer dollar and a free ride. So, mate, I think as far as Liberal Democrat policy, that's a fantastic policy to have. I'd love to see everything in this Freedom Manifesto implemented. But hey, change takes time, and the party, the Liberal Democrats, have been working at it for 20 years. This is nothing new for us. Yeah. And we've had a great influx of some really interesting and cool new members, and we've had them from both sides of politics who have come over. We've seen former Labor Party branch presidents, we've seen Nats, we've seen Libs, we've seen people who have been apolitical for their entire lives ring up going, right, I've had enough. You guys are it, which I'm really, really grateful for. I think it's amazing for us. The growth's been phenomenal. I don't know what the percentages of growth in the party in the last 2 years, but I know that it's fantastic, and it's been through the roof relative to. Mate, the last little thing, obviously we don't want to keep these things too long for obvious reasons. People get bored and people have other lives outside of politics. Mate, the 16th, we need to sort of do a little quick plug of that. On the 15th, the Liberal Democrats' fight for our name is in the High Court, Supreme Court in Canberra. And the Liberal Party want to take our name off us. Yes. Now, I was quite happy. Had you asked me 5 years ago, I would have signed the name over and said, look, I'm a Liberal Democrat. Yeah, look, doesn't mean anything to the average Australian so much, and it was a different time politically. But if they think they're going to take it without a fight, I think they're in for a rude friggin' shock. What about yourself, mate? Nope, your screen's frozen.
Yes.
Sorry, there, John. So, what are your thoughts on this name change caper?
Well, look, it's the High Court. There's no room for appeal. I very much have been involved in sort of the legal fight against it. I'm the plaintiff, Dean, so I'm up to my neck in it. Look, just step back and think about it for a moment. We've got a political party out there called the Liberal Party. Now, liberal is meant to represent, the word liberal is meant to represent sort of, freedom and tolerance and sort of, let people do what they want. Okay. And the Liberal Party is acting in a very illiberal manner by saying, no, we own the word liberal. We own it. No one else is allowed to have it. Twice before the Liberal Party's tried to take the Liberal Democrats' name away from this. Twice they've lost. So what they did, it was after Campbell Newman defected, they rammed through the Parliament with Labor's support. They rammed at the crossbench, the Greens to their credit, Jackie Lambie to her credit, One Nation, thank you very much. They opposed it. They knew that this was bullying tactics. And then we had, I thought the Labor Party was going to oppose it. And then at the last moment, Labor signs up for it because they want to crush the Democratic Labor Party. Now, the Democratic Labor Party is a institution in Australian political history. They were very, very, very influential in the 1950s and 60s. And Labor wants to crush them once and for all. So, look, I think we've got a terrific legal team. Look, but everybody tells me you cannot second guess the 7 justices on the High Court. So, right. So we'll just have to see what happens. It's we'll by the time we've got the Riverina rebellion on, we'll either be celebrating a High Court victory or we'll be celebrating a new name that we will have to adopt.
Yeah, look, and fair enough, mate. Look, I didn't take kindly to bullies in my teens or in my childhood. I'm buggered if I'm going to take kindly to bullies now that I'm in my 40s. The tolerance level has gone down for bullies and arseholes, so that's not going to change anytime soon. And if they're so desperate to take our name, we're going to fight for our name the same way we're happy to fight for the Australian people. And that's why I'm fighting for the name. It's not because I'm madly in love with the name. It's just I'm not going to be bullied by some arseholes in Scott Morrison's team or anybody else for that matter. So if you want to vote for the party that's not going to be bullied, not going to be intimidated, not going to be harassed, well, you need to look at the Liberal Democrats. If you are looking at joining us in the Riverina Rebellion, again, Ross Cameron, John Ruddick, John Larter, myself, Tim Quilty, MLC. Looks like the Aussie Cossacks confirmed, so he'll be there, cool. Right. $25 a ticket at the Riverina Club in Wagga. We'll obviously do some speaking. I've actually invited a couple of other minor party candidates and said, look, if you want to come up and have the floor, because when I say to people that I believe in, this fight being for all the minor parties, I live what I say. So I'm happy to share my campaign launch with other candidates in my own election. Either I'm crazy or stupid, possibly a combination of both, but I stand by what I say, and I look, $25 a ticket. It's on Eventbrite. It's on all my socials. I'm hoping John, Ross, Tim, and the other John, and maybe even the Cossack will be happy enough to share the streams and the links for the tickets. $25 a ticket. You've got 5 or 6 speakers who are going to be excellent. Other than me, I mean, I'm sure I'm going to be rubbish, but I'm very pretty, as we all know. So, look, I'd love to see as many there as possible. It's a great little town. It's a great little venue. And we're going to have a good time selling freedom. We're going to live stream it as much as possible. And you're all welcome. You don't have to be paid members of the Liberal Democrats. You do not have to be paid members of any political party. All you have to do is want to show up, want to support freedom, want to support me and the other gentlemen that are standing up and the other members and the other freedom parties. I don't care if you come to the Riverina Rebellion and decide you're going to vote One Nation. That's cool with me. I don't really care. You'd be welcome. I look forward to seeing everybody there. John, any sign-off words before we log out?
I've been to the Riverina Club before, Dean, and it is a really beautiful, old, historic building. And, there's a bit of a museum area in there as well. So, the Riverina is a great district for the whole of Australia. And, Dean, can I just say this? I've got to know you pretty well over the last sort of 9 months or so. I'm absolutely certain if you have got a seat in the House of Representatives, You are going to be a fighter for good values, and you're also going to be somebody who brings a bit of colour and a bit of character to the Parliament. Unlike the existing member for Riverina. But more, Parliament's not a joke. Parliament is about true believers and good policies. You're going to deliver on that, but it's also good to have somebody with a bit of get up and go about them, and that is you. And it's not Michael McCormack. So all the best, buddy, and can't wait to be there. It's not far away. It's 2.5 weeks away. So hopefully see you there and everybody else.
2.5 weeks away. Thank you for your time, John. We'll chat again soon, ladies and gentlemen. Get your tickets on Eventbrite. Check out the links. Check out John Ruddick. We need to get this man into the Senate to hold these bastards accountable. If I can get into the lower house, well, I'm quite happy to rattle them to their core. That's part of what I do. And check out all of our other fantastic Lib Dem candidates in New South Wales. We've got candidates South Australia, Queensland, Western Australia. I think even the ACT guys are starting to put together some candidates. And, of course, David Limbrick down in Victoria. We're putting together a great team. It's a really exciting time. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll catch up soon.
Good on you, Dean. Thanks so much for having me, mate. See you soon.